Chad Kymal is the CTO and founder of Omnex, an international consulting and training organization that's headquartered in the United States. Chad has developed and teaches auditor training for ISO 9001, ISO 14001, ISO 45001, and integrated management systems. He's the founder and CEO of AQSR, a global registrar that routinely provides integrated management systems. He's a registered lead auditor who's conducted hundreds of audits since 1990. Chad is also on the ISO TC 176, ISO TC 207, PC 283 committees for ISO 9001 2015, ISO 14001 2015, and ISO 45001. Chad, take it away.
Laura, thank you very much. Welcome, everyone. This is the part one of sort of what we see as the base of integrated management systems. I have the honors of presenting to you the idea of integration and standardization. Let me just say right from the onset here, we all know about integrated management systems, but we believe standardization is as important as integration, and these are some of the thoughts we'd like you to take away with this presentation. So I'll mention several other thoughts as we work our way through this presentation here today. Folks, I represent Omnex. Omnex is a 33-year-old company. We were founded in 1985. We're headquartered in Ann Arbor, Michigan. We have done a lot of work in the automotive industry. We did a lot of work in the semiconductor industry, and we're doing a lot of work also in the aerospace industries. There are about 6 different industries we have a lot of focus on from North America, and in different parts of the world, there are other different focuses for Omnex. As Laura mentioned to you, we take great pride in being on different writing committees and really helping formulate many of these standards. So we have a software company, Omnex Systems, in our group. And really, we are an absolutely global company, having helped Ford Motor Company, in the 1995 era, with their emerging market strategy. We then helped the semiconductor industry in Southeast Asia, and now, of course, helping the aerospace industry. But really, this is how Omnex has grown, helping our customers. Laura's already mentioned a little bit about me. And this is the talk that I will be sharing with you. So I have 3 chapters. I'll be starting out with what we call the rationale of an integrated management system, meaning what is an integrated management system? Why is it important? Number 2, we'll define what is an integrated management system. And I'll tell you right from the onset, when we say IMS, we mean integrated processes, integrated risk, and integrated audits. And then I'll try to finish up talking to you about the process approach. The process approach, or the integrated process approach, will really focus on an integrated process map, the process documentation, and process metrics. So we'll talk to you about that when we get there. All right, let's start then with this rationale for an IMS. And this is what we'll be doing in this chapter. We'll understand the rationale and motivation for IMS, and then we'll talk about the high-level structure. And believe it or not, top management will say is required to integrate management systems. So I'm hoping to leave you with these ideas with 5 different learning objectives. So if you really understand this chapter well, you should know what are the IMS drivers. Number 2, the high-level structure and what's required of an integrated management system. Third, that the proliferation of standards today is really driving the need for IMS. And of course, also with this proliferation of standards, the costs of maintaining and implementing these standards. And last, what we call the challenge of the enterprise. So let's cover these different topics as we move forward. So we'll start right here. So, what's driving us to implement integrated management system is really, I'll just say this, I'll start at the bottom. We have at Omnex, we do a lot of work with, large corporations. So whether you have 3 plants, or as some of our customers have 300 entities scattered around the world, we have the challenge of unifying, the processes, how we work together. So really, that's the challenge of the enterprise. I'll talk about it more. I have slides on it. Number 2, the implementation of maintenance costs that comes with this proliferation of standards. So today, we have all these different standards that a company or organizations are implementing, both because we have to, because of the environment we're in. For example, social responsibility, or the information security. Or sometimes we're implementing standards like our quality management system standards or environmental management system standards because our customers ask us. And so there's a proliferation of standards around us, and the cost of implementing and maintaining it is really, increasing. And more so, if we don't integrate, not only are costs going up, there's also actually a lot of confusion in the organization. Well, I'm getting ahead of myself. Fourth, what's also driving the IMS, by the way, I've been helping implement integrated management systems since 2002. So the first time we did it was implementing a quality management system with an environmental management system. At that time, the ISO 14001 and the ISO 9001, those similar, did not share the same, structure. So today, there's the advent of the high-level structure is a definite plus driving this IMS. All right, let's go on. So what is this high-level structure? Well, really, it's a mandate from the ISO body that all management system standards need to follow the same structure. And I'll show you a next slide that shows you the structure. So if you know ISO 9001 or IATF 16949 structure or the AS 9100 structure that all follows, the high-level structure, ISO 14001 and 45001 and so on. So anyway, to help in the deep proliferation of standards and to help companies implement integrated management system standard, there's the ISO body, actually it's the ISO TMB that came up with this Annex SL that really laid out the ground rules and said, hey, you need to follow this high-level structure, and this is what you're looking at. So the clause numbers will be the same. These, subheadings and clauses will be the same, plus definitions will be the same between the standards. Folks, this is what many companies were waiting for. Soon as a standard, follows this high-level structure, integration becomes much easier between the standards. All right, let me go on. So here is, if you look at the high-level structure, 5.0 is leadership, and 5.1 is leadership and commitment, and this is common between ISO 9001, 14001, and 45,001. For now, folks, we'll just look at QMS, EMS, and health and safety standards. Though, as you know, Omnex says best-in-class systems is QMS, EMS, health and safety, information security, and social responsibility. Maybe I'll get a chance to talk to you about why we think these 5 standards are important a little bit later. But in this slide here, we're just talking about 3 of them, and we're trying to share with you that each of these standards has the same wording for top management. Let's take a look. So it says in 5.1c, in each of these standards, it says ensuring the integration of the quality management systems into the organization's business process. 14,001 says ensuring the integration of the environmental management system requirements into the organization's business process. 45,001 says ensuring the integration of health and safety management systems into the organization's business processes. Folks, there's only one set of processes in our organization, and if these requirements all come into the organization's business processes, lo and behold, you have an integrated management system. So de facto, I like to tell people the high-level structure requires our organization to have integrated management systems. All right, let's move on. So these are the forces driving us to integrated management systems. What else? Proliferation of standards. So we have 9001. We have, if you're in the food industry, you have food safety standards, ISO 22001. If you're in the automotive industry, you have 16949. You have functional safety 26262, also in the automotive industry. BDA 6.3, 14,001, 18,001, now 45,001, 17025 for labs. And folks, when you see Dr. Wayne Visor's presentation, he'll show you another 100 social responsibility codes and standards. So really, we're in this era of multiple different standards. Some because we think we have to, some because our customers require, some the government requires, regulatory requirements require us to do. So we're in this era where there's a proliferation of standards. So it's really a slide I borrowed from Wayne Visor's presentation. These are all the codes and standards, the challenge of growing expectations for a company. Not only do you need to have high quality products, we are expected not to exploit the environment. We're expected also not to exploit, and discriminate or hire child labor. Socially, we have to be responsible. So these are social norms requiring us to implement all these different standards. Let me make this also my opportunity to talk about, so not only we need quality management systems, environmental management systems, and health and safety management system, you need to be socially responsible. Most major corporations in the world have defined, social responsibility codes and ethics standards for the employees and their organization. So what do we say? It is time to integrate that into the business processes of the organization. We can just have all these wonderful words in a code of conduct, but unless it's implemented into the business processes, it's not going to happen. It's not going to get done. So that's the 4th standard we say as part of the best in class. And folks, with all the hacks going on and the cyber, attacks going on and the environment we are in today, it behooves all of us to implement IT security ISO 27001. So that's why we say best-in-class integrated management systems integrate QMS, EMS, health and safety, social responsibility, and ISO 27000 IT security. Of course, if you want to integrate 50001, not a problem. 17025, not a problem. These are all things we have done and can be done. All right. So why all these standards? Really, it's the expectations of our interested parties that we serve. And then let me finish this chapter up, this section up, by talking to you with what we call the challenge of the enterprise. Multiple plants, corporate, multiple design centers, sales offices, and customers, and this is the common refrain of customers, you guys are so different. In fact, as I present to you today, I'm sitting in Omnex's Shanghai office and presenting this. So, this is what our customers tell us, how come, this is Omnex's customer, how come they're so different in China from the USA versus Thailand or India? Really, it's because we're in a multi-site, multi-language, multicultural, multi-standard audit and risk management environment. And companies get defined by the top management that's there and the culture that's there. So we really want to, implement something standard. So we have to integrate and standardize globally. All right. So that's the challenge of the enterprise. All these factors, folks, drive us towards integrated management systems. So this is what we talked about in this chapter, the drivers of integrated management systems, the high-level structure, the proliferation of standards, the costs that go with these management system standards, and the challenge of the enterprise. All right. Now that we know what is driving the need for our integrated management systems, let's define what is an integrated management system. So the agenda in this chapter is we're going to define what is an IMS, what are integrated, so we're going to define it as integrated processes, risks, and audits. What are they? The important topic of integration versus standardization, and really understanding how to integrate a process is a workshop, and we're not going to have a chance to do this workshop here in this presentation. So what are the learning objectives? I'd like you to walk away with the understanding that integrated management system equals integrated processes, integrated risks, and integrated audits. Folks, that's how we planned the first three, part 1, part 2, part 3, introduction to integrated management systems is around this definition of integrated management systems. Second, if all you're left with is the integration of processes and you didn't learn the idea of standardization, I would be deeply disappointed. In fact, I think the idea of integrated management systems is a deeply flawed idea. We really should be saying integrated and standardized management systems. All right? So from now on, when we see the word IMS, you're going to think integration and standardization because you need both. And I hope when we're done with this chapter, this is an understanding you'll walk away with. All right. I've mentioned this multiple times now, a couple of times. So let's walk away with this definition of an integrated management system supported by 3 pillars of integrated processes. This is the chapter I'm going to end up with, finish up with in the next chapter. Then Mr. Greg Greska is going to talk about integrated risk, and Mr. Prabhuram Sheshadri is going to continue with integrated audits, part 2 and part 3 after I'm done. All right. So we actually defined integrated processes. When I talk to companies, and I may have mentioned this to you, we've been implementing integrated management systems since 2002. My first paper, though, I wrote in 2006. And if you have been following my work, this is my pet area, my area of research, that I've written many, 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 many papers that presented in multiple places, integrated management systems, and I wrote a book for ASQ. I actually have promised them 2 other books. I'm a little delinquent because of different things taxing on me, but I will be getting back to that soon. But so when I talk to folks about integrated management systems, for some reason, they actually think they're already there. Folks, to help you understand integrated management systems, we have actually come up with a set of questions. And I have those. If you want to get the set of questions, you can get that in the executive primer, which is a free download in this track. Okay? And so here's how we say what are integrated processes. You don't have to be 100% integrated. In fact, I don't believe you should be 100% integrated. If you're somewhere between 70 to 95% integrated, you're in good shape. You have integrated processes. By the way, you may or may not want to integrate your level 1 manual. Well, number one, it's not required. I'm not saying because it's required. I think an Apex manual is a good idea. If you want to integrate it, fine. If you want to separate it, that's okay. But you still need to integrate your processes if you want to do an IMS. And also, at least 30% of your work instructions should be integrated. There's no reason you can't do much, much more. But in my belief, if you haven't done 70 to 95% of your processes and 30% of your work instructions, you cannot say you're integrated. Number 2, the savings in integrated management systems come in if you have one process owner. By the way, not just in your site. If you have multiple sites, and if you have electronic process flow, you can have a process owner in one of the sites. Think about the savings. All right. So integrated processes. Next, we have integrated risk. What is the definition of integrated risk? Number 1, a common risk methodology between the Q, the E, the HS, or food safety, if you have food safety. We have integrated all of these. Well, what do we mean by that? Well, number 1, risk equals severity times occurrence. All right? Sometimes this occurrence is called by different names, maybe called frequency. But anyway, risk is always severity times occurrence. And if we use different rating, methods of rating between the Q, E, HS, or FS, the risk number is going to be meaningless and you can't compare it. So integrated risk has a common risk methodology and a comparable severity and occurrence rating between the categories of Q, E, HS, and FS. And we say optimally, one team conducts the risk analysis for the 3 categories in one process or one subject matter or one department. Okay, that's integrated risk, which is the next talk. Then we have integrated audits. I oftentimes, when people call me on integrated management systems, first thing they say is, hey, Chad, can you come and teach us your lead auditor class for integrated management systems? And I have to very gingerly ask them, do you have an integrated management systems? Nope, they don't have an integrated management systems, but they want to implement an integrated audit. Folks, you cannot do an integrated audit unless you have an integrated management system. All right. With that said, what is an integrated audit? the use of one common audit process and audit program for QEHS or food safety or social responsibility or IT security. So the audit process uses an integrated audit checklist and an audit team capable of auditing the integrated system. So again, folks, what is an IMS? An IMS has three pillars: integrated processes, integrated risk, and integrated audits. So why integrate? Really, number one, you can think about, when we say 6.1 or 6.0 planning, it is integration of the goals and objectives of the organization. Efficiency. A little bit later, I share with you the savings of an integrated management system, but it dramatically reduces the number of processes and number of process owners. It integrates management planning, realization, and control. And the effectiveness. I have two pictures that I've shown always for integrated management systems. One is I show an engineer going crazy who says, hey, I don't do quality, I don't do environmental, I don't do health and safety, I just do my job. I like that thought. I like that idea. And I like that engineer with his hair going crazy saying, don't give me 3 different procedures of how I should do something. Designers of system, it's your job to integrate it. All right. I hope that helps you understand the efficiency and effectiveness of integration. And of course, the second picture I like to show is management saying, what, you want me to meet again for quality? You just met with me on environmental 2 months ago. So the idea of having management review for quality, a management review for environmental, a management review for health and safety, a management review for IT security. Folks, I'm talking to the designers of the system, and then is to integrate. And then we auditors of the system can audit that integrated systems. Really, in the end of the day, the benefit of the integration is in focus, efficiency, and effectiveness, which all adds to the bottom line. At the end of the day, it's all about the savings. All right. So here is a single plant or a single design center or a single warehouse. Folks, pardon me, we haven't updated the 18,001 to the 45,001. But here is the ISO 45001, the health and safety. Here is IATF 16949, the automotive quality management system. ISO 14001, environmental management system. And let's say this company also does ISO 9001. Okay, or it could have been 13485. So what we're showing here is 4 silos. 4 sets of manuals, processes, procedures, work instructions, forms, and checklists. Folks, I don't want some of you to come back and say, it's not required. That's not what this point is. The point is there's 4 different documented management systems and multiple different processes. Let's say, for example, there's a competency/training in health and safety. There's a competency/training in the IATF, there's a competency and training in 14,001. Do you think this is crazy? Well, this is 99% of us out there have these silos. So this is the idea of standalone systems in a company. We just said standalone systems means much, much more work because we have the same process multiple times managed by multiple process owners. And the idea is integration, integrating the Q, the E, and the HS into one manual. So let's say here we show actually 2 manuals, one set of integrated processes, integrated work instructions, and integrated forms and checklists. So that's the integration in one site. And now what we'll do is we'll segue into the idea of integration versus standardization. Folks, let me pause here while I take a little drink of water, that is. All right. So integration versus standardization. So what we're showing here is three standalone systems, one in the design center, another one in the plant, another one in the warehouse, and ... another one in plant X, okay? So not only is there, in this one, there's a standalone system in each of the entities, and so here we'd say lack of integration, which is horizontal, and lack of standardization, which is vertical. Does that make sense? Integration is horizontal, standardization is vertical. What we mean by that is this company has not standardized any of the processes between their different sites. So, all right, let's look at the definition here. Integration refers to standalone systems that duplicate, for example, training processes, document control, internal audits. There's a tremendous loss of value associated with standalone management systems, as we've already discussed. Worse yet, many organizations continue this duplication of effort among their different sites, including plants, design centers, sales offices, and so on. So if there's a lack of efficiency and confusion in one site, you magnify it by duplicating it multiple times in a large organization. In fact, when I say this, I go back to the first paper I wrote, Juggling Multiple Standards. And in this paper I wrote on juggling multiple standards, I talked about two case studies. One is the very first implementation I did was at Yazaki, by the way, in North America, where we integrated QMS and EMS. And the second one was a large electronics site that we helped both in Silicon Valley, in Europe, and in Asia. And it hit me when we were implementing, the idea of how clear it was. I was working in a bunch of design centers. There was a few thousand people in about what they call 15 business lines. And in each of those business lines, they had duplicated management review, duplicated document control. Each of them had different quality managers, and they had their own management system. So really, lack of integration, lack of standardization. So look at the efficiency to be gained by collapsing, integrating, and standardizing, and having one set of processes globally. Folks, if you go back to the book I wrote for ASQ, we have 5 different case studies in it, from service industry to automotive to aerospace to food safety, including one in the Middle East. We wanted to show a number of different ways integration and standardization can happen. Now, when you look at this, it's theoretical, where everything is integrated 100%. As I already mentioned to you, I'm not so sure it has to be 100%. In fact, 70 to 95% of processes or level 2 is okay. 30% of work instructions is okay. I didn't even go as far as forms and checklists. I think forms and checklists and work instructions can be integrated to a great degree. All right. So here's an example of the savings of integration and standardization. So we have here 4 sites with 3 management systems, which is really then 12 standalone management systems versus 1 integrated management systems. So if there are 500 documents on average in each of these systems, then in the 12 different management system standards, you have what? 12 times 5, 600, 6,000 documents, all right? So, which then sort of collapses into those 6,000 documents will collapse into about 500 documents, all right? And look at this. If there are 100 process owners in one system, there's 1,200 process owners. So the amount of work is in the duplication of processes and hence process owners who have to manage all these processes. Folks, there is a implementation cost, but the maintenance cost is much, much, much more. So here we are then. You should have a pretty good idea what we mean by integrated management systems. So we did chapter 1 was the rationale and the drivers of the IMS. Chapter 2 laid out the whole idea, what is an integrated management system? So folks, what is an integrated management system? Integrated management system is integrated processes, integrated risk, and integrated audits. And then we went on and talked about, defined each of them. And then we talked about not only integration, we talked about integration and standardization, the need for both. All right. So this is chapter 3 then, talking about the integrated process approach. Folks, I'm going to focus much more in the very beginning about the integrated processes. And and I'll ease off a little bit with we have some classical ideas of how we see management systems to be implemented. But since it's really not about integrated management systems, maybe I'll take a light, review of the tail end of these slides. All right, let's look at the agenda here. We'll talk about enterprise processes and define it. What do we mean by enterprise process? Performance measurement, and the idea of process maps, process flows, and process measurables. So what is the takeaway here? Which is the key to integration is the process approach. So one of the pillars of integration. Then we'll talk about what are enterprise processes, proliferation of standards, measuring enterprise processes, and process documentation. The last 3 will hit lightly because it really is not all about integration. All right, so let's get right into it and define enterprise processes, enterprise process measurement, and maps, flows, and process measurables. Folks, the process approach of a management system hinges on the sequence and interaction. Of course, the standard doesn't say process map. In fact, in some cases, they just say the process approach. But the idea of the process approach is there in the QMS, the EMS, and the health and safety. Of course, the QMS or ISO 9001 or its derivatives define it the most. And because of 5.1C, I hope you remember 5.1C in leadership, that says integrate the requirements of QMS, EMS, and health and safety or IT security or social responsibility into the business processes, you need to define the business process. And one way to define it is in a process map. So here you have an example of a process map of the product realization, support processes, management system and commitment, and business processes. We're not saying this is the world's greatest process map, but the idea is you need to define your business processes because your integration starts here. So what I like to tell people is the way you are is the way you are. The way you operate is the business processes. And when you look at these different standards or when standards change, I like to think of them as just a set of shells. So look at the second, what I've written here on the screen here. When encountering a shell from any management system, you compare it to your existing processes and say, yep, I meet it. Number two, you say, nope, we have a process, but it doesn't meet it. I'll have to update the process. Or three, you say, I don't even have a process for it. So really, that's the way to handle the integration of those requirements into the business processes through the process map, or we say the process approach. I hope it's clear then, as we walk away from this slide, the process approach, in this case, the process map, is a key to integration. Without this, you cannot do integrated audits. So what are process maps? So we'll give you some best-in-class thoughts here of the process map. They need to document the processes in enterprise. Let me go back to that picture again. Oh, let me go back to that. Oh, I guess looks like I have to go a few slides to get this. Go back to that picture in your head if you can, with the multiple plants, the multiple design centers, and the multiple sales offices, and the processes flow between them, enterprise processes. I'd like to tell you a true story. How these things come at you. I was working with this very large corporation, and they had a VP in charge of sales and marketing. They had a multiple number of VPs in charge of design, and they had VPs. They had two different big manufacturing centers. And I had a chance to work with all of them, and they all had business. They had scorecards. And as I was auditing, I noted that they were all mostly green and yellow. This company was doing well. So as I was auditing them, in the midst of this, I had an auditing and consulting and implementing. In the middle of it, I had a chance to talk to that customer. I was on a committee writing a standard with that customer. And the customer told me, hey, Chad, I know you're working with XYZ company. Tell them how unhappy we are with them. Wow, it's taken aback. So here I was. Everything, all the scorecards looked green, but the customer was seeing red. Do you see that? And really, in the end of the day, the way they were operating was they were in silos. So you have to integrate at the top of the organization. I call those enterprise processes. So you have enterprise processes and you have side processes, all right? Anyway, the idea of the enterprise process is a uniform way to do business and to operate the company, to operate company-wide. It allows you to link key measurables or the results of the company to the process measurables of the company. I'll show you a methodology we use for that. And it represents a uniform look and feel of the organization to its customers and suppliers. Remember I talked to you about that? When the customer looks at our China operation or our India operation, our Thailand operation, our German operation, our US operation, we seem the same to them and we operate the same way. It comes through integrated processes and an integrated process map or enterprise process map. Number two, if you really want to, excel, you need to identify the processes that interact with their customer and key interested parties. This is not directly about integrated management systems. So let me go on. But we've called them COPS, customer-oriented processes. But they're not only about customers, but they also need to be focused on key interested parties that affect our future. So a takeaway in the bottom here, a focus on customer-oriented processes are key to improving and maintaining customer satisfaction, and a focus on processes, a key to interested parties, guarantee the survival of the business. Think about that as I go on. So let's now talk about enterprise processes. These are the processes connecting up the site, the design centers, the sales, and manufacturing. And so it's what we say. They link the entities in an enterprise. And the processes help you get the results. Like we like to tell top management, well, I'll get a chance to talk to you about that yet in a picture. And then also we have enterprise process owners. Who are these enterprise process owners in an integrated management system? It is the VPs of the company. They're the ones who can really manage at the highest level the processes that cut across entities. It's an important topic for you to think about as I move on. So the challenge of the enterprise is coming up with processes that helps us behave as one company to our customers and suppliers, right? Those are the enterprise processes managed by process owners who are at the highest level of the organization. So we like to document this in what we call a process list. And we like to do process documentation and flows. And let me finish by talking to you about enterprise performance measurement. So, we had a chance to work with Ford Motor Company in 1993, helping define, key measurables and customer focus for the organization. The same methodology that we used there, we have now really taken and we implemented. So let's talk a little bit about that. So the key measurables, key metrics, or KPIs are the vital few metrics that measure the pulse of the organization, right? These are the metrics top management needs to focus on, and these metrics are guaranteed by the process measurables. Really, the results, the key measurables are the results, and the results come from processes performing well. Let's look at a picture here. This is the methodology Omnix uses for 6.1 across Q, E, HS, social responsibility, IT security, with the idea of context, mission, vision, policies, and interested parties defining our goals and objectives, which are the intended results in 6.1, that we measure through KPIs, and then they're supported by key processes, process KPIs. All right. So what is this methodology saying? What this methodology says is that, you can't get your results, your intended results, your goals and objectives. That's the result of how the company performs. What you can manage and improve are the processes. Let me say that again. It's what we tell top management. The results are the results. Results you cannot change or manage. So the KPIs are the results. What you can try to manage are the key processes that support each KPI. A fundamental thought, folks. So that's also where the risk and opportunity analysis of risk-based thinking is there. And the improvement actions are made towards the process KPIs. So you improve a process KPI, it helps you make the performance KPI, the result at the top, helping you meet the goal and objective that satisfies the interested party expectations within the context of the organization. So this is our integrated BOS process to help set 6.1, 9.3, and 10.3. Connects up the KPIs at the top of the organization to the process measurables. Very important thoughts. So I mentioned to you, here's an example of that. You can pause and look at this some more if you want, but this is really not the big focus of the talk today, so I'm going to go by. And then what we do is we document it in what we call the BMS control plan. So, folks, that is the talk today on integrated management systems. This is the first in the series of 3 base presentation, because as we said, an integrated management system equals integrated processes, integrated risk, and integrated audits. So that's my first presentation on integrated processes, followed by Greg Gruska when he talks about integrated risk, and then followed by Prabhuram Sheshadri that's going to be talking about integrated audits. Folks, if you want to know more about these topics, there's a book on available through ASQ, and some classes we do at Omnex on integrated management systems and auditor courses. With that, let me turn this back to Laura.
Thanks, Chad. This ends today's presentation. Thanks for listening.